I was asked to share my experience with being a moderator at town meetings. And so I put together, I spent a number of hours watching recorded town meetings and seeing what consistencies, inconsistencies, what things went well, what things didn't go well. And what I have here are a number of recommendations to ponder. So one of the things that I took note of was that the moderator will typically say something like, you have 3 minutes, each speaker has 3 minutes, but that's the moderator talking. And it's nice that nobody contests that he says that you've got 3 minutes. So what I think might help a town meeting is if included with the call to the meeting is an item which can be discussed at the meeting, listing some of the common practices of the town meeting. So you can see here in one, there are 2 recommendations. One that the selectmen have a nominee for a moderator, one who would be voted on a yes/no by the town meeting. If they vote no, then somebody else could be selected by the meeting. This isn't a foreclosed choice. It's just that I think a moderator needs to be informed before the meeting about what is going to happen. And unless you know who the moderator is likely to be, it's hard to inform that person. So, this is the budget. It's going to be presented by Art Lasky. He'll make the motion, that sort of stuff. And that's why I'm suggesting that. Of course, I guess there could be a crib sheet that is prepared that could go to the moderator, whoever the moderator is. But my own experience was when I knew I'd be nominated as a moderator, I knew that it would help if I knew some background about the various items. So that's number one. And number 2 is to have those customs that the town meeting has come to share. So among the things that I'm talking about are specifically that the agenda, the call is set by the selectmen and can't be modified in accordance with the Connecticut General Statutes, that they can include criteria about restrictions on the length of debate, the 3-minute individual speaker, whether a question can be called, and if so, at what time in the debate. For example, there could be a minimum amount of time that each item can be debated before the question can be called. If debate doesn't go on for 30 minutes, I don't know why anyone would want to call a question, but I've seen it happen in town meetings where someone has stood up very early in the debate, says call the question. The debate on calling the question, there is no debate on calling the question, it's undebatable. And then a vote happens and nobody else can comment. So that's another kind of thing that could be included here. And so then the meeting is called to order by the first selectman or the designee. The call to the meeting is read by the town clerk or designee. And in reading the call, the clerk will make a reference to the return of the notice of publication as required by Section 7.4 of the Connecticut General Statutes. That's a legal requirement that I haven't heard in the reading of the call at the meeting. So it really, all it is evidence that it was received for publication by a newspaper. First selectman will then ask for a motion and a second to elect the recommended moderator, and shall explain that if the recommended moderator isn't chosen, then nominations will be taken from the floor. The vote will be yes or no. And assuming that it is a no, then, as I say, hold on a second, my pages are a little strange here. Okay, so we're on the right side of the page now. Under the best of circumstances, the moderator should always have immediate access to a microphone in order to exert authority when necessary. So one of the things I've seen that happens is the moderator gives the mic to a preferred speaker, and I think the moderator always needs to be able to interject himself in the course of something that might happen. The sooner the moderator can exert control when it seems to be going out of control, the better the meeting will be. Now, I didn't see anything like that, but it's just that the moderator almost routinely gave the mic away. Moderator will ask for the temporary bylaws, those that come with the meeting call, to be approved, and they could be amended, they could be approved, they could be defeated. But merely trying to get something in writing in the hands of the attendees that better informs them about how the meeting is conducted. At some future date, those could actually be codified into an ordinance, and then it wouldn't have to happen on a regular basis. But you have no experience, so see what works and see if that's a solution. So in the context of a town meeting under the Connecticut laws of Connecticut, there's no purpose in approving an agenda, which I've seen done. The town meeting can only consider the items in the call, and no additional ones can be added. So citizens with other business should be directed to bring their concerns to the first selectman, the board of selectmen, or the other appropriate board or agency. If not, in moving their concerns along, Section 1 and 2 of the Connecticut General Statutes provides for a petition process to bring an item to a subsequent town meeting. So there is citizen access if they feel frustrated, but the frustration can't be eliminated at a town meeting where the item isn't on the call. And then continuing, addressing the possible removal of an item from a call by a vote of the town meeting only serves to prolong debate, and I'll explain why. So if you don't like something on the call, you have an opportunity to take it off the call, in which case it won't be debated. But if you lose that, then you still have the opportunity to defeat it when it is debated. So by approving the agenda, you accomplish nothing. Just go with the agenda, let people vote on the merits, and things will either be approved or not approved as according to the sentiment of the meeting. So it's just an extra step that can be eliminated. And now the moderator will review how the meeting will be conducted. This includes reminding the meeting that discussion will be limited to the items on the call. Even an annual meeting is not an open forum. Concerns of citizens not on the call can be discussed by the board of selectmen, other appropriate board or commission or department. Now, I've seen that happen where people come to meetings and they want to talk about something and it's not on the call. And by explaining this ahead of time, 95% of those interactions hopefully can be disposed of before they become a distraction. Each item of the call is taken up in turn. Items on the call all have a history or context. The town budget has been through a Board of Finance process. Ordinances have been discussed, at least by the Board of Selectmen, if not by another initiating local agency. There is therefore an interested party for each agenda item. In ordinary circumstances, the chair of the particular board should be recognized to move the item. Not someone from the audience, but as I exhibit here in 2 paragraphs down, making a motion and seconding authorizes debate and discussion. Without a motion on the floor, there is no authority. The motion comes before discussion. That's just boilerplate Robert's Rules of Order. You can't talk unless there's something on the floor, and something gets on the floor by being moved. So the moderator should address the call item in this fashion. I recognize Art Lasky, Chair of the Board of Finance, for the purposes of a motion relating to call item 3, approval of the budget. Art would then step forward, make the motion, and the moderator would then ask for a second from those present, asking the seconder to identify themselves for the record. The moderator would then recognize Art to explain the budget. After the explanation, the moderator asks for public comment or questions. In the case of any item that has been identified as being submitted to a vote at a subsequent date, like the annual budget, the moderator will not ask for a vote, but will note that the item will be considered by the town on a subsequent date as further set out in the call. Otherwise, the moderator will ask for a vote as is further discussed. So let me see if there are any questions at this point, because I've gone through a lot. Raise your hand.
Yeah, I'm not seeing it.
Okay, all right. So when there appears to be no more comment on an agenda item, the moderator will ask, hearing no further discussion, are you prepared for the question? Or is there further debate? If no one asks to be recognized, the moderator will restate the question. The vote is on call item number, the town budget for the next fiscal year, and asks for yeas or nays on the item. Those in favor say aye. Wait a second. Votes should not be rushed. Those opposed, nay. When there is no doubt of the result, the moderator announces the ayes or nays have it. Or if there is some doubt, the ayes or the nays appear to have it. Wait again. See if anybody disagrees. And then continue. The motion is approved or disapproved. Even at that late point, someone can say at the top of the next page whether there is doubt or not. Before announcing that the motion has been approved or disapproved, the moderator should pause, giving anyone present who disagrees with the moderator's initial assessment an opportunity to call for division of the meeting or use similar language. Division alone is sufficient. If the moderator is in doubt, then the moderator should not announce a result, but say, the moderator being in doubt as to the outcome of the vote, we will proceed with the division of the body. And this is something that Robert's Rules of Order goes into great detail in scripting, because this is if you announce the vote wrong, or even if some people think you announced the vote wrong, this is you don't want to be there. So that's why this is all scripted out. Ask, wait, ask for the other side, wait, make a decision, either clear or not clear, wait for someone to challenge. So there's a lot of pauses for public interjection to make sure that there is not wide disagreement with the stated determination of the moderator. So a true division of the body requires the ayes and nays to stand on one side, the ayes to stand on one side and the nays on the other. The benefit of such a vote is that the ayes and nays are counted at the same time, and there's no opportunity for anyone to vote both yes or no. A division can also be accomplished by a standing vote, or for that matter, a raising of hands. Personally, I would use rising vote for a smaller attendance and a physical division for a larger number, just because it's harder to count a lot of hands or people standing in the air when, if they're actually separated, you just go down and count the bodies in front of you. So In any event, at least 2 tellers should be appointed, preferably one from each side of the vote. If not obvious from the debate, volunteers can be selected. The votes of the tellers themselves and of a moderator can and should be included. Any person registered to vote in Easton or any citizen 18 years of age or older owning property in Easton with an assessed value of at least $1,000 is eligible to vote at the town meeting. I will leave it to the town fathers to determine how someone is challenged or not challenged in that case. You got to have a voting list, and you got to have a property, a grand list in front of you. Yikes. Yeah, it's been a long time since I've been to a town meeting, but maybe once in 50 years, I saw somebody being challenged, and it was unsuccessful. They were there, they were rightfully there. So as a consideration in preparing for the meeting, the Board of Selectmen should consider in their crafting of bylaws for the meeting whether questions should be kept separate from debate on the item itself. Now, I've seen this happen in the past. What that means is, who has a question? Okay, let's ask your questions and we'll get them answered. Now, who has an opinion? Okay, you can give your opinion, yes, no, or maybe. Just to free the flow, because questions are easily dispensed with and opinions tend to be long-winded. Now you can do that. You don't have to do that. If you do it, you can do all the questions first and then do the opinions, or you can intermingle them. Questions and opinion, question and opinion. Just to move things up and not to get bogged down in a lot of words, or not to keep people waiting who have simple questions that are easily handled.
Joe, can you take a question?
Sure.
Yeah, hi, Dana Benson. Just a quick question, Joe. A couple of quick questions, actually. Do I understand from what you said there that you have to be a property owner in order to vote at a town meeting? In other words,
no.
Okay.
A registered voter or an owner of $1,000 of assessed valuation.
Okay, got it. And could you just define the concept of teller? That's a new piece of language for me. What is
teller counts?
It's just a counter, somebody who counts.
Yes, a teller counts.
Okay, and then the last concept was the concept of the call versus the agenda. Is that just nomenclature for Robert's rules, or what is the call?
Robert's rules talks in terms of an agenda. The agenda of a town meeting is the call.
Okay, the agenda of the town meeting is the call. And then I guess the last question is, you're not talking about a petition town meeting, petitioned by the citizens here. We're talking about the rules for a selectman called town meeting. Is that correct?
Well, I mean, there is provision for a petition called town meeting, but the selectmen still call it.
Okay, got it. But, and just last thing, so the idea that you can go to the town meeting and that this is the gathering of, quote, the legislature, for lack of a better word, of the town, and the legislature controls this meeting and they can vote to consider an item that's not on the call, the selectman's call. That's an inaccurate idea. Is that correct? What you're saying?
Yes, there is a mythology about town meetings that this is where the town assembles to address all of its concerns, and that might have been the way it was 400 years ago, but it isn't the way it is or has been for quite a while. The town meeting can only address what's in the call. If you have a burning issue, you can petition the selectmen to call a town meeting to consider your burning issue. But you can't add your burning issue at a town meeting that does not include that burning issue in the call.
Got it. So this idea that this is our meeting and we get once a year at our annual town meeting as citizens that we can, that we can basically do whatever we want if we have the room is not accurate under the rules, under the laws and statutes and Robert's rules, right?
Yes, it is. It is a misconception. Let me try to find the statute for you. In just
Well, that's okay, Joe. I don't want to take you off your. Thank you so much for coming and giving us this. I don't want to take you off your preparation and just display my ignorance. I can study on my own. Thank you.
All right. All right. So moving forward. Also, in terms of questions and debate, should there be an opportunity for advanced sign-up? Should people who are on their toes put their name in before the meeting that they want to speak, or is that too prejudicial? It's something, I have no recommendation, but it is something that you should consider in terms of try it and see if it works. It's definitely the town's to consider, but it's something that isn't being done now and could be done. Next, we get to amendments, and amendments are tricky. Should they be allowed, limited, or not allowed at all? However they are managed, it should not be individual moderators who determine whether an amendment can be considered. And this has happened in the past. We had a moderator who used a guide as his guide for moderating the town meeting, a book called It's Town Meeting Time. It sounds very appropriate, except It's a Town Meeting Time was written by the moderators of town meetings in Massachusetts and addressed the law in Massachusetts and not the law in Connecticut. The law in Massachusetts did not allow for amendments at a town meeting. There's no such law in Connecticut. But my point is that this gentleman didn't allow amendments, other moderators did, and you need consistency. Will they be allowed? Won't they be allowed? Do they need to be in writing? Do they not need to be in writing? Is a simple one. I think that period should be a comma. Can that one be offered in verbally? So these are questions that are beyond me, and I might even have an opinion, but my opinion doesn't count. So, do you want to have amendments, and how should an amendment be presented? Let's move on. We're back on the left-hand side of the
So,
page.
Joe, you're leaving that as a question to the town.
Yeah, everything here is a question to the town. You know, some of them might have greater resonance with more people than others, and therefore there's no real decision to make. And other things are, it's yours.
So when, like, your first 2 points, one of them was the common practices. It's like it should be established no later than the beginning of the meeting, as the moderator announces things. This is how we're going to run things.
Right, but it should come as an agenda, as a call item, as an agenda item. It should be written on paper. That one I'm very, very particular about. It should be written on paper. Now, what it says, that's a whole nother thing. And you'll learn with time what has worked, what hasn't worked, what do people understand, what they don't understand. So, but that, I think, you know, people have it in hand, and it says no new business. Keep germane, 3-minute limit. If you need to come back, you can go to the end of the line. We take questions first. We take substantive comments first. All of those things can go into those bylaws. So an amendment, assuming that they are considered, is a subsidiary motion, one that doesn't stand on itself and but is only considered after the main motion has been made. So someone says, I move for approval of the budget, and someone else says, I move that the police department's expenditure be reduced by $5,000. Now you've got something to talk about. That can't happen if it's going to a referendum, but if it isn't going to a referendum, that would be a germane. It can't go to a referendum because the referendum's already gone with a dollar amount. So you can't amend something after it's gone to the printers, so to speak, with a dollar amount. Anyhow, so the vote on the amendment is called, and the amendment is either approved or disapproved. After the vote on the amendment, the debate continues on the motion as now amended. Additional amendments can be made or seconded, debated and seconded, and when the debate is ended, the vote on the motion as amended can be taken. Standard parliamentary practice allows for amendments by substitution. Such an amendment completely replaces the proposed language with alternate language. As such, an amendment by substitution should be in writing with adequate copies, if you allow them. If you don't allow them, then but an amendment by substitution is special because it takes everything and throws it away and puts entirely new language in. Certain incidental motions may be appropriate but are not often made in the town meeting. A point of order can be raised when there is a question of procedure, but most often it is used when someone doesn't understand town meeting process, and it can be easily disposed of. Used even less frequently is an appeal of the moderator's decision. It is possible that someone proposes an action that the moderator rules out of order. In such a case, the moderator's decision is appealed to the body of the meeting for a vote. I suspect that in such a situation, the moderator has probably lost control of the meeting, and either the moderator should be replaced or the unruly person who is challenging the moderator should be removed from the meeting. But they need to be unruly to be removed. And there's, a statutory citation, 7A. When the debate has ended on the last item, oops, what did I do? When the debate has ended on the last item of business on the call and a vote has been taken, the moderator does not need to ask for a motion, second, and vote in order to adjourn. The moderator would say, there being no further business, this town meeting is adjourned. Or if there's a referendum scheduled on any agenda item, the moderator would say, there being no further business, this town meeting is adjourned until the scheduled vote on call items X, Y, and Z on such and such a date between the hours of noon and 8 p.m. or other appropriate times. So when the discussion and votes as appropriate have been taken on all the items on the call, the meeting is over. The Connecticut General Statutes does not provide for additional business to be conducted, so that's all there is, folks. The meeting adjourns as a matter of course. So the moderator announces there's no more business, goodbye. So that, in a nutshell, are my impressions after having watched about 8 hours of town meetings. Scintillating stuff. And my comments are brought about by inconsistencies between different moderators, between the same moderator at different times. And that's, in my mind, when people know what to expect because of consistency of practice, they're much happier and much less likely to become boisterous and unruly. Now, let me just tell you that in terms of reference material, and I expected we'd have more bodies here, but I have printouts of Chapter 90, which talks about town meetings and how they're conducted, at least as far as the statutes are concerned. Lots of holes, lots of things not discussed. That's why you need bylaws. I also have a motions chart. The motions chart tells you what kind of motion has a precedent over any other kind of motion. It's real nitty-gritty. Can it be seen, Ira?
Okay. I guess they can see that you're holding something up.
Okay. So anyway, this sets that forth. How an amendment processes in terms of Robert's Rules of Order, not in terms of its substance, but what gets said when, how you say it, and how you move forward with the amended motion or not. What are the 11 duties of a chair? In essence, the moderator of the town meeting is the chair of the town meeting. these I'll just review with you for a moment, but anybody, I'll give you my email address before we say goodbye, but I will, I'll be happy to email this to anybody or put it in the paper mail, whatever works better for you, because I got 20 copies of each. So the chair announces the next activity. The chair recognizes members. The chair states the question and puts it to a vote. The chair refuses to recognize dilatory motions, things that aren't germane. The chair enforces order and decorum, expedites business, decides all questions of order, responds to inquiries, authenticates documents. I don't know that that's particularly anything for the town meeting, and then closes the meeting. So those, I think, are also the duties of the town meeting moderator. Now, so when it comes to Robert's Rules of Order or Rules of Order, there are thousands of books, literally, on the subject. And in fact, there's a whole cottage industry in revising Robert's Rules of Order. I don't know who's familiar with Connecticut building codes, but I think Connecticut building codes and building codes in general all exist for the purpose of employing people who come up with regular revisions of them. And I don't understand why the revision of 2014, why the revision of 2010 needs to be replaced 4 years later as being unsafe. You know, where the building's falling down, blowing up. Anyway, Robert's Rules of Order is pretty much the same. This is the 11th edition of Robert's Rules of Order, published in 2011. The current edition is the 13th. 2 more editions since 2011, which of course we all know was yesterday. This is the original Robert's Rules of Order. Look at this, look at this. Tell me how much really goes on. This is the Manual of Legislative Procedure that the Connecticut General Assembly uses. It is called Mason, after its author. Mason's manual, it's not Robert's, has some very different rules about the very same things. But this little baby costs you about $120 if you look for it on Amazon. This was my copy from 50 years ago. I have 2 books that I can recommend for someone who wants to get into Robert's Rules without getting lost in 716 pages, two editions ago. One is Robert's Rules Simplified. It is issued by Clyde Bank Business. You can find it on Amazon. You can also find used copies of it on Amazon. It costs about $9. And Meeting Procedures. This is published by Scarecrow Press, but it's sponsored by the American Institute of Parliamentarians. And it's a good, concise book. It also is available on Amazon, new and used. This particular copy that I bought used came out of the North Branch Public Library in St. Petersburg, Florida. Anyhow, so
Question for you. I have Robert's Rules for Dummies
yes,
by, I think, Alan Cummings. Any good?
sure, why not?
Okay.
I mean, this is skinnier. This one's skinnier. This one's even skinnier.
Yep.
I like skinny. You can also get something like this, which is one of these 3-ring binder inserts. It's pretty good. It goes over general Robert's Rules of Order. The problem is a town meeting is not general. A town meeting has very limited scope authority and has a very focused purpose. So there's lots in Robert's Rules in general that the town meeting never gets involved with.
Joe?
Yes.
Before you, just a few minutes ago, sort of dove into Robert's Rules, so much of what you said, kind of to your point, didn't, touch in detail on Robert's Rules. It was mostly, here are the customs, do this, do this, do this. You know, there was an amendment, but otherwise it was just sort of straightforward. So a person does not really need to be expert on Robert's rules to be a town meeting moderator. Would you agree?
Yes, I agree. If they're on a corporate board, if they're on the board of the United Way, or even their church, they need to know Robert's rules much better than the town moderator does, the town meeting moderator. Now, one other thing that I might have glossed over, I don't remember saying it, but I thought I wrote it, is that whether the panel of moderators is, whether the pool of moderators is a formal panel, or whether it's just an informal group of people that you know are versed in town meeting procedure and can step in, there should be such a group. They should be, and they should, with their approval, they should be known by the town, by the townspeople, because there is an expertise in this peculiar institution that you just can't step into. Dana.
Yeah, hi, Joe. I'm going back to the beginning. We talked about the bylaws, and we talked about the selectmen call meetings, and that's part of their executive function, and they establish the call or the agenda of the questions that are going to be discussed. And I guess then they established the bylaws, and I guess my question was, when we get into it sounds like they could, if they wished, propose bylaws or rules for the meeting, was the way I like to think about it. Because when I think about bylaws, I think about corporations and other things. But okay, bylaws to run a town meeting that would exclude amendments. And if, I guess, so my question is, at the beginning of the meeting, when the rules are proposed, is it just the whole second? Is it within the normal process that people could oppose those rules and propose alternative rules?
They could be dispensed with entirely, and the status quo could continue, or if there were draconian provisions, it could be excised. But if the people don't like the proposal, it's the first item of business. They could say no, and then you don't have anything in writing, and the moderator's job is harder because, I say there's a 3-minute limit on your participation, but I have nothing to back it up other than my personality and presence.
So at the beginning of the meeting, I sort of understand the concept that the selectmen established the agenda or the call of the meeting, and you can't have dilatory motions coming from the floor that aren't, and I get all that, and I'm just trying to understand the rules debate. So there can be a negotiated process, for lack of a better word, at the beginning of a town meeting if the room does not accept the rules as proposed by the selectmen. Is that a fair way of putting it?
Yeah, because they are voted on.
They are voted on. And so it sounds like one of your recommendations would be that those proposed rules for the the proposed bylaws to govern the town meeting should be circulated ahead of time to make things smoother. Is that really one of the things you were saying?
And that they essentially be the same from meeting to meeting. The rules could be codified in an ordinance and adopted that way, and they wouldn't need to be considered at every meeting. But my sense is that there is nothing like that at the moment. So let's try this meeting, see how they go. Okay, well, this could have been a little bit better. So next meeting we'll propose the original rules with a little tweak, And, and this process could go on until everybody's comfortable. The rules have been, these same rules have been adopted time and time again. Now they can go into an ordinance and they don't have to be voted on every meeting because they're in an ordinance. But I didn't want to propose an ordinance up front because I didn't want people to think that a set of rules was being foisted upon the town or would be foisted upon the town that can't be changed. So do it every meeting and by experience see what works and doesn't work. Or don't do it at all, and then the moderator's job's a little harder.
Well, so just to follow up on that, I'm so ignorant in this area, but I can't recall the town meetings that you observed, the 8 hours of recordings that you reviewed, were a set of rules proposed and voted on at the beginning of the meeting, or did we just launch into the meeting?
The meetings were just launched into. Sometimes the moderator would say 3 minutes. Sometimes the moderator would say 4 minutes. Sometimes the moderator would say X. Sometimes the moderator would say Y.
Okay, got it.
Moderator. Sometimes it was different moderators. But that's what I was trying to address in as informal a way as possible. Adopt some boilerplate at the beginning of the meeting that everybody can see and understand, and do that every meeting using the experience of the previous meetings to try to get something that has some staying power. And when you find you're not making changes every meeting, you might want to codify them in more.
Well, let me ask you another question. Based on what you observed, other than perhaps not following procedures perfectly, and having inconsistencies, it's my impression of the town meetings I've attended the past 5 years that they've gone all pretty smoothly and that we haven't had a problem. So I guess my question would be, as an expert in here, is there a problem that you diagnose? Is there something that you see based on the recordings that concerns you?
I did see a voice vote that the moderator called. It was not agreed upon by many people, and it set the whole tone wrong for the meeting. And so one of the reasons I was so deliberate in spelling out, call for the yays, call for the yays, wait, call for the nays, wait, what did I hear? No doubt. Okay. It appeared the yays have it. Wait. See if anybody disagrees. Someone stands up. Division. Okay. Someone has called for division. We will have a physical vote. That didn't happen that time. Had it happened that time, that would have been a much happier town meeting.
I see. So, but outside of this, and once again, thank you so much. That's really important. But it seems like our customs are working pretty good. It sounds like I hear you're saying that our customs are working pretty well without a codified set of rules up front. That my concern, I guess, is I'm thinking, I don't mean to debate you, but I mean obviously up to the town, but that. Why would we back ourselves into a limiting set of an ordinance that creates a structure around a town meeting that's, I think, historically been fluid within the confines of Robert's rules and these other sources you give us and the norms and.
I raise it because I've seen inconsistencies over time, I even saw inconsistencies from the same person who moderated 2 different meetings. So there are inconsistencies. Where did 3 minutes come from? Where did 4 minutes come from?
I see.
So
yeah.
It might never get codified into an ordinance, and that's why I'm not proposing an ordinance, but just that every meeting you adopt some principles that everybody can be familiar with, and there's no doubt about it.
Cool. Thank you.
Oh, I've got a question. I have a question for you.
Sure.
If we are operating with Robert's rules as the organizing principle, wouldn't Robert's rules be the set of rules that the town meeting would be managed on, so that we're not needing to codify? We need to clarify the moderator's understanding of a parliamentarian that might help people better understand what the expectations are and what the rules under Robert Rules of Order might be.
I'm looking to see if I can find it in Roberts right now, but every book that I've read on parliamentary procedure talks in terms of the legal framework and the bylaws of the organization, and then the laws of parliamentary procedure, or the rules of parliamentary procedure. There is no equivalent in Easton at the moment of bylaws. And that's why I'm suggesting that bylaws be adopted at each meeting, and that experience help shape them, so that a reasonable set of criteria, whatever they are, can be used and expected by people who have regularly attended meetings, that it not be so confusing, and especially for newcomers who don't understand what it's all about or how it works. And having it in writing is, I think, a great benefit to everyone concerned. It isn't necessary, but because of inconsistencies I've seen between moderators, and again, even the same moderator at two different sessions saying things differently, that is something that I think can help the general understanding. If that isn't if the Board of Selectmen take my recommendation and come up with some rules, and the rules are not accepted, and that happens multiple times, well, then I guess the town meeting has spoken and prefers inconsistency with consistency. So that's it. It's a recommendation. That's why I made it, because I saw inconsistency which caused confusion among people at the meeting. Ira.
Joe, somebody texted me, I guess they're shy. They asked if you could leave some of the materials. I'm not sure exactly which materials they meant. If you could leave them at reception area at town hall, or perhaps email some of them to interested parties.
I will leave them with the first selectman, and you can get them. As I say, I've got 20 copies of lots of things.
Okay. And I think you said you'd make your email available if people who are interested.
Yes, so here, let me, I even had 20 copies of that. Hold on. Where are we? All right, let me just show you for people who don't want to write it down. That's my contact information. Can you see it?
Not really.
No? Oh, okay. Well, if you were to, let's see. You can read it out. All right. So, all right. My email address is joeschwartz21@gmail.com. JOESCHWARTZ21@gmail.com. And my cell phone is 203-571-8376.
8376.
And I'm going to put it in the
Chat.
chat. Do we have a chat? I don't think we have chat.
Maybe not.
Okay, never mind. So, anyone else?
Yeah, Joe, Dana Benson, if no one else, I'm remote, so I don't mean to hog it, but I just think we have a great opportunity to learn from you. And, I've known you since 1965, or your family is, so thank you very much for your service to the town and being up in Hartford and, everything. So my question is more of a broad one. Given that you've been involved in Easton town government for 50 years and state government, as you remember back to town meetings back in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, how, and based on looking at the meetings you looked at this time, reviewed, how have you seen the meetings change, and what would be your sort of observations of, the old days to today, and did you notice any trends, or just, I'd be fascinated to hear your wisdom. And, if you also wanted to share some thoughts about state government and the relationship to the town and local sovereignty, or just whatever, we don't get this chance very often, and I'd love to hear some of your just broader thoughts.
So, the 4 town meetings that I watched were no different than 4 town meetings you might want to take out of the 70s and 80s. There was a group of people who didn't understand what was going on. There were the regulars. There were the gadflies. It was all the same. The substance may have been different, perhaps, and more than perhaps. The presenters seemed to be better organized and better prepared than they might have been 40 or 50 years ago. So I give that to the town leaders. They knew what they wanted and they knew how to explain it much better than in the past. But I think that's been something that has improved over time. I don't think it's brand new. I think that generally the town leaders have become more adept than they were in leadership than they were 40 or 50 years ago. But that's really the only change. That's really the only change that I've seen. What, I didn't turn off my video? I did turn off my video.
You also asked about state government, I think.
Oh, state government, it's, state government doesn't like to get involved in local issues. Even though you might think they're trying to change our zoning, really leaving it up to towns to meet what the state thinks is the responsibility. It would have been very easy 20 years ago for the state to take away local zoning and say, look, you gotta have multifamily housing, and we're gonna do it for you. That didn't happen, and I think it's because the state government really respects local autonomy. Might not look that way on a particular issue at a particular time, but look at financing education. There's still great inequality after multiple lawsuits and multiple changes, and the state just doesn't want to get involved in a way that would make change. So appreciate it for what it is.
Joe, can I ask a town meeting question?
Sure.
So there's some language in the statute that always confused me about either the selectmen or the people by petition removing an item from the call. And it was almost like you could interpret it, I thought, to say you could pull something off the agenda completely and just go directly to, I don't think it's a good idea, but it almost appears as if that's the mechanism. And I've always been confused by that. I think that the exact wording is to select up to a certain amount of time the selectmen may remove from the call.
I know what you're talking about. Let me find it.
Yeah. And I think there's a similar option for the town by petition.
And any such town meeting, we're in section 7.7. Okay. I think all that means is, if you want to decide the item at voting machines, you have to do it 5 days before, the town, you have to make your decision, was it 5 days before? The selectmen of the town may, not less than 5 days prior to the day of any such voting, on their own initiative, remove any item on the call of such meeting for submission to the voters in the manner provided by this section, or may submit any item which, in the absence of such a vote, could properly come before such a meeting to the voters at the date for such vote, or along with any other date of which which has previously been set.
So remove means remove the decision out of the hands of the people in the town meeting, and it is placed instead in the machine vote referendum. Is that right?
Well said.
Okay. Yeah, remove was always the word that was problematic for me, but
Yeah.
that's good.
That
that's a definition I would like it to be.
So the populace, 200 electors have always had the right to petition to remove the decision from the town meeting to the voting machines. And then at some subsequent time, the Board of Selectmen was given that opportunity without necessarily receiving a petition. So, let's see, 200 or more persons, or 10% of the total number qualified to vote at the meeting, whichever is less, may petition the clerk or secretary of such town or municipal corporation in writing at least 24 hours prior to such meeting, requesting that any item or items on call of such meeting be submitted to the persons qualified to vote in such meeting not less than 7 or more than 14 days thereafter. So again, it's the vote. It's the vote, not the discussion.
Perfect.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Quick question, what constitutes a quorum for a town meeting?
1. Right. On the other hand, you got 3 selectmen, a town clerk. You're going to have at least 10, but 1.
Joe, this is something I've wondered about. Dave, don't know, but this is something I've wondered about if such a thing could be codified. If it would be within the power of a town to have an ordinance to do something like this. If we were to, let's say, had an ordinance that said, any item, if we vote on at the town meeting, and if it passes by a 2/3 vote, and the people opposing is no more than 10 people, then it's settled. But if you don't reach that threshold, if you don't reach that threshold, then it shall be removed to a machine vote referendum. So that the really easy things can sail through if there's very little objection. And everything else could automatically go to referendum. Do you think such a thing would pass muster?
It's a legislative thing. It's not a town thing.
Does that mean an ordinance could do it or could not, you think?
No,
That
the
goes against
legislature
state
has not
statute.
given towns that authority.
Right.
Now,
Unless we had a charter, perhaps.
perhaps if you had a charter, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that also kind of addresses the fact that no one can take an item on the call that hasn't been pre-directed to a referendum and call for a referendum on that question. Is that correct?
So, as I'm understanding the so for anybody, for a petition to remove the item to the voting machines, it has to be at least 24 hours before the town meeting starts. So if you're at the town meeting, that's where it gets voted on. It can get defeated, it can get approved, it can get amended maybe, but that's where the decision will end. However, it's possible that it could be approved and then someone, and if it's not something that vests at a certain time, if the decision doesn't vest at a certain time, it's possible that someone could petition the same item to a new town meeting and then petition that to the voting machine.
Yes. Or get the selectmen to agree to put it.
Yeah,
in the voting
right,
machine.
yeah. So, anyone else?
I have a quick question. Sorry, it's Nanette DeWester. Hi, Joe. Thanks for coming and doing this, first of all. If someone, for next steps, if someone wanted, because you shared a lot of very good information, but if somebody was really new to this and really wanted to learn how to do it, and they have, some basic understanding of how to handle groups and they're comfortable, managing, let's say if things escalated, they're kind of that style of person. What would you recommend they do to get better at these skills or to learn how to do this?
So I've set forth in my basic presentation, basically a script to go through. Now, some of it is discretionary, but it is a script. The meeting gets called to order. The town clerk reads the call, takes note of the return of a publication notice. The moderator gets selected. So it's all here in pretty much 14 numbers and 16 numbers. And as Dana had asked, or someone had asked, I will give to the first selectman tonight all of my copies so that he can distribute and make them available. So.
Joe?
Yes.
You had mentioned the possibility of if the moderator loses control, there's like the appealing decision of the moderator. You mentioned an unruly person who should be removed. I thought at one time I read that constables have that responsibility, but then I read more about elected versus appointed constables. Who's in charge of doing such a thing?
So 7-8. Let's see. Long sentence. Legislature used to love long sentences. They've gotten better. The moderator of any town meeting and of any meeting of any society or other community lawfully assembled may, when any disorder arises in the meeting and the offender refuses to submit to the moderator's lawful authority, order any proper officer to take the offender into custody and, if necessary, to remove the offender from such meeting until the offender conforms to order, or, if need be, until such meeting is closed, and thereupon such officer shall have the power to command all necessary assistance. Any person refusing to assist when commanded shall be liable to the same penalties as for refusing to assist constables in the execution of their duties. But no person commanded to assist shall be deprived of such person's right to act in the meeting, nor shall the offender be so deprived any longer than the offender refuses to conform to order.
So who's the proper officer?
I would think a constable or a policeman.
Police officer.
Yes. Officer. Yes. Excuse me. All right. Anybody else? Anything else? It's weird looking at
Dana, are you raising your hand?
Yeah, I'm sorry to keep asking questions, but I don't think I'll have this opportunity again. So this will be my last one. A couple years back, we had a petition to the town meeting where one of the things on the agenda was to pass a conservation easement to protect the South Park land. And I was wondering if that was one of the meetings that you had reviewed and whether you saw any irregularities in that meeting is one question. And then the related question, I had always had the impression that the voice vote of a town meeting is as binding on the town and is legitimate as, the people present at a town meeting voting to do something, to approve things, is as legitimate as a machine vote. And I just was wondering if you could comment on those two questions or those two situations, or, there was a school of thought out there somehow that the citizens who petitioned this town meeting somehow hijacked a process and there was something illegitimate out there. And I think really what it was that some people disagreed with the decision. But I've just wondered if you could comment on the legitimacy of petition to town meetings, and if you had a chance to observe that one, if you had any specific thoughts about that one.
I did not see that meeting. I think I looked at the last, I don't know, year or two, but the four most recent town meetings, something like that. In any event, that was not one of them. But in my opinion, so long as there's an undisputed outcome to a voice vote at a town meeting, whatever it is, so long as it's within the top power of the town to do, it is done.
Okay.
That's why I stressed on a voice vote, make sure there's no dispute as to the outcome. And if there is dispute, divide the meeting so that you can count bodies, and then there's no question.
And just a quick follow-up on that. I mean, a town meeting can approve something that they think is within their power, right? And then subsequently discover that it's not, and that decision can be nullified. But still, they can approve at the town meeting what they believe is within their power to do. Correct? And it's still a legitimate town meeting. It may be subsequently unwound. Am I thinking about that the right way?
Well, no, you're exactly right. In June 1941, the town of Easton, at a town meeting, adopted zoning regulations. The town of Easton followed those zoning regulations until somebody said, oops, the town meeting cannot adopt zoning regulations. Only the Planning and Zoning Commission can adopt zoning regulations. So the town went to the legislature and said, oh, we made a mistake, can you make it right? And the legislature enacted what's called there's a term of art, it's escaping me, but basically they said that the zoning regulations adopted on that date, although they were adopted by a town meeting, are in full effect as if they'd been adopted correctly.
Public act, special act?
Well, it was a special act, but there's a term of art defining what that action by the legislature did. It's like a sustaining vote, but that's not the word. In any event, so the town meeting can. So the town can move forward on action of the town meeting, even though the town meeting's wrong, and sometimes the court says to the town, you were wrong, you got to do it over, you got to do it differently, you can't do that, it's got to be something else. But it's like any legislative body, the town, when the action is taken and it's taken legitimately and undisputedly, then it is, in fact, the law until proven otherwise.
Great. Thank you very much. Thank you.
And I will tell you, Dana, that those zoning regulations went into effect 30 days after the vote, and before the 30 days was up, Bill Kuhn filed the subdivision for what is now the Buttonville Pond neighborhood. So in non-conformance to those zoning regulations, our neighborhood was subdivided.
We got to get you on tape. This has got to become part of the oral history, Joe. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Anyone else? Going once, going twice, going three times. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
That was wonderful.
Well, sorry, it was a little technical at the beginning. I'm glad we got that going.
Recording stopped.
Yeah, never let the first selectman be in charge of technology.
I see you have never